Hello, welcome to Local Anesthetic Podcast, your regular injection of mind-numbing local news. This is episode 347, and we are recording on the 31st of October, which makes this, hello Rob, by the way, our Halloween-themed episode. Woo! And I put on some suitably spooky music right now. There we are.
Ooh, welcome to this spooktacular episode. Yeah, just to make clear, none of my stories this week are anything to do with Halloween.
Are they really not? That's very
no.
That's very that's very disappointing, Rob. Well, maybe you could sort of make them Halloweeny themed, surely.
Well, I'll do my best. Yeah, I mean, Alex, I also just to say, I mean, at this crucial time, I'm actually quite upbeat because finally the Halloween. God, how did that come into my head? I was about to say the pandemic, but somehow, the nightmare sort of morphed into the word Halloween. But the pandemic is finally over. The leaders of the world are uniting in Glasgow to solve climate change. And yesterday I spent the day in a garden centre riding on a model train. So what better place in the world than that?
I think with everything slowly disintegrating around us, Rob, and us sort of hurtling ever more towards sort of extinction and everything else, that's a very fitting image. A man lost his mind just riding round and round on a model train set in a garden centre. You know, Rob, you've got to do what you can to stay sane.
I mean, Alex, this was a completely conscious decision, and this is actually Laura's second time on a miniature railway, and she enjoyed every moment, and also, as you rightly said, it was a welcome distraction from the horrors of day-to-day life.
Talking of all things horrific, Rob, and all things ghoulish, I was very interested to watch Mark Zuckerberg's presentation this week, where. I mean, what is wrong with this man? To quote something you've often said many times, not about Mark Zuckerberg, you said it about many people, but what is wrong with this man? I mean, I think what's literally terrifies me, Rob, is I think this future that him and other people in tech want to create for us is pretty inescapable, and I don't want it. I've always said to you, Rob, I like having a physical distance between me and the device or the screen I'm using. I don't want to be immersed in a virtual reality world. And also, what is the logical extension of this? All that it will mean is that, Rob, you will have people sitting around, right, who become more immersed in the virtual sphere than they are in the physical realm. So while all of society and everything goes to hell around us, people will just be sort of doped up on these machines in this complete fantasy world. And by the way, that was predicted in at first a comic strip and then a later TV serial by Oliver Stone, which was amazing. And it's very rare. If anybody's ever seen it like I have, you can't even find it anywhere nowadays. It was called Wild Palms. It was a 4-part series. And in that, you saw this where there were people who were just hooked on these machines now. That was their life. They were like junkies and they couldn't function in normal society, Rob.
No, I can imagine, Alex. Interestingly, so thank you for sending me through the clip. I'm hoping everyone is aware of what's been announced. Obviously, Facebook is trying to address all the issues with its platform by just changing the name. By the way, quite funnily, I'm not sure, but did you know that Meta is the Hebrew word for dead?
Yeah. Yes, I did.
Yeah. Very entertaining.
Yeah.
I forwarded your video on to a few friends. And one responded, so Mark is trying to create a version of the Matrix with worse graphics, which I think is quite entertaining.
Yeah, but Rob, we laugh, but the problem is, oh God, it just... And this idea that he goes around thinking, wouldn't it be great if, you can just be working? I don't want work surrounding me all in that way. And it was so intrusive. It was so horrible. It was so... Oh my God, Rob.
It was so Mark Zuckerberg, who is clearly a sociopath.
Yes. But it's so dangerous. It's so dangerous.
Yeah, it's just, it's for those who really want to escape everyday reality, but to the extent where it's going to do them serious physical and mental harm.
But my worry is, Rob, it will be imposed on all of us. This is how we'll shop. This is how we'll do everything. And people will say, oh, well, it's no different than going online and using the internet. But it is different. There is something different about it. Anyway, Rob, this isn't what the podcast is about. We need to just...
Alex, you wanted to give it a kind of nightmarish, dystopian start. There you go. We've created this nightmare.
Yes. But I think, just to finish, what we've got is a lot of billionaires who are either trying to find a way off this planet or an alternative reality to escape to, rather than addressing any of the fucking issues we just have right here. And by the way, as well, I want to say, what the fuck is up with Nick Clegg? Yeah, I mean, if there is a definition of a sellout, how can he go to bed and justify his role there? I just cannot understand it. This man calls himself a liberal Democrat. What the fuck?
I mean, Alex, let's face it. I think it's quite clear to say that Nick Clegg doesn't often stand by his morals. And I think, they can easily be brought by the lowest bidder. I mean, he did the same within the coalition government, and yet once again, he's done the same by joining Facebook. So Nick Clegg, go fuck yourself.
Yeah, Nick Clegg is a bastard. I'll say that right now. All right, Rob, we've got to get on with this. Have you got any news for us of any note?
No, actually, no. I think there's a few things I sent to you. One of those is quite a big announcement, but I'm not sure we're supposed to discuss it on the podcast. So I'll respond to the individual. Yeah. But no, I think we can just crack on.
I should say, if anybody is new to listening to this podcast today, this is a podcast covering all kind of strange, weird news, funny news from around the world. We've been doing this for a very long time now, as you can tell by the episode count. But if you want more of this, you just go to patreon.com/LAPodcast extra. Sign up there to become a Patreon member. It's £2 a month, and you will get bonus episodes delivered to your inbox every month. And we really enjoy making those for you. So do that. Right, Rob, let's start then. I never thought I'd do a story from YouGov, but I'm going to.
So, do YouGov post news? I wasn't aware
they
that was a thing.
They have a website called today.yougov.com, and this is from their YouGov America.
Sorry, is this maybe the Tories' way of trying to publish their own sort of propaganda channel? I mean, what is this?
Hang on a minute. YouGov has nothing to do with the Tories. YouGov is an independent polling organisation.
Isn't it, Alex? Isn't it?
Right, okay, listen. 2 in 5... Okay, this is by Jamie Ballard, who is a data journalist. From October the 21st, 2021, 2 in 5 Americans say ghosts exist, and 1 in 5 say they've encountered one. So 2 in 5 Americans say ghosts exists, and 1 in 5 say they've encountered one. Because to put that in perspective, that's 40% of Americans that say ghosts exist and 20% who say they've encountered a ghost.
Well, I was watching a documentary this week about Iceland, and apparently 55% of the population believe that elves and pixies exist. So
yeah, but that might be to do with their kind of local mythology and everything like that. I know, maybe
that's a fair point.
Maybe they do. I mean, with Halloween just days away. It is Halloween today. Woo! It is a season for all things spooky. Ghosts, demons, vampires, and more. A new YouGov survey of 1,000 American adults find that many people aren't convinced that these entities are just the stuff of scary stories and horror films. More than 2 in 5 Americans say they believe demons exist, and a similar percentage say the same about ghosts. For both, more Americans say they exist than they don't, the rest aren't sure. Far fewer Americans believe in the existence of werewolves, although I would like to say, Rob, 1 in 10 Americans believe in the existence of werewolves. Right? Vampires, 8% believe in vampires, and 31% think that other supernatural beings exist, which I don't necessarily dispute because we don't know what is beyond the corporal realm, but I don't believe werewolves exist or vampires. But
No, I mean, I think if I asked around, I think I would find very few people who believed in werewolves in this country, although,
I meant to ask.
Joni believes. I can believe that's on the rise, though. That's what concerns me.
Rob, I've always meant to ask you. You are a big fan of Back to the Future. Were you also a big fan of Teen Wolf? Because didn't that have Marty McFly?
Michael J. Fox.
Yeah.
It did. Yeah. He wasn't. I don't think he was in the follow-up, as far as I'm aware. I think that's a different actor. I've only ever seen it once.
Right.
And that was very recently.
Okay, listen. Women are more likely than men to believe in ghosts, 50% versus 31%, and in demons, 48% versus 38%. Now, maybe this may surprise you or not. Education level may also play a part in whether a person believes in ghosts. Americans with postgraduate education are the least likely to believe in ghosts, at 28% compared to 41% overall. The same trend applies on the topic of whether demons exist. Americans who completed postgraduate education programs are the least likely to believe in demons. Blah-de-blah-de-blah. When it comes to demons, Belief across ghosts were consistent across political parties, but there were political divides, Rob, on the belief in the existence of demons. Can you guess the difference between Republicans and Democrats? Go on, Rob, you can do this.
I would say 70% Republicans, 30% Democrats.
Actually, no, you were too extreme. 51% of Republicans believe that demons are real. Slightly more than the percentage of independents, 46%. Only 1/3 of Democrats agree, 34%. So there you go.
Sorry, I got that. I almost got the Democrat percentage right. Just those damn independents.
Yeah, exactly. Women are more likely than men to say they've had at least one personal experience with a ghost, maybe ghost sex, as we've covered many times before on the podcast.
Yep.
Americans under 30 are also more likely than Americans who are ages 30 through 44. Oh, I can't be bothered to read that. Fewer Americans, Rob, say they've personally encountered a demon. 11%, and hardly any say they've crossed paths with a werewolf, although 4% claim they have. So 4%, 3% they've had a personal experience with a vampire. About 1 in 9.
Sorry. No. What was that quote? Sorry, what was the percentage of those who've had personal experience of a vampire?
3%. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Fuck's sake.
11% have encountered supernatural beings of a different type, whatever that means. So, maybe, I'm upset they didn't ask about aliens. I'd like to know how many people have believed that they've been abducted by aliens or a personal experience of aliens. Now, but we should say, Rob, I just want to declare an interest here. As any regular listeners to the podcast will know, and I mean this genuinely, in my life, I did once have an encounter with a ghost, and I did once see a UFO. Genuinely. So, but I don't think that makes me crazy, Rob. I'm just being honest. I'm just telling you what happened.
And you've got an MA, Alex. What does that say?
Well, yeah, exactly. Okay, look. Let's. I'm disappointed, Rob, that you don't have Halloween-themed stories. You're leaving the heavy lifting here to me, but that's fine. I've got a story now from 6abc.com. Is there a journalist? No, there isn't. Is there a date of which this is published? Hang on a minute, let me find out. Here we go. Yes, it's by Walter Perez. Wednesday, October the 27th. Satanists convince Delaware County, Pennsylvania school district to alter dress code.
Okay.
Now, yeah.
Is this the dress code of students, I'm assuming?
I believe so. Any Satanists who are listening, you may feel offended that I've lumped you in with sort of Halloween, but, come on. It's, it might be cheap, but...
Come on, get your shit together.
Yeah. So anyway, Pennsylvania, a local satanic organisation has convinced the school district in Delaware County that its dress code was discriminatory against Satanists. Joseph Rose, the founder of a local organisation called Satanic Delco, says maybe that's what Facebook should have changed their name to.
Satanic Delco, fantastic.
Can you imagine if Zuckerberg had stood up and said, with all his hand waving, and we are changing our name to Satanic Delco?
But in some ways, do you think people, I found it quite entertaining because there was so much ridicule once obviously Facebook changed his name. But if he'd done that, that feels more authentic to me.
Yeah, it does. But also, can I just say that apparently, I know we're going back to this, apparently all this stuff about the metaverse is heavily inspired by a science fiction writer who wrote all about this, and is sort of and is in certain tech circles is literally required reading this book because people are so into this idea of the metaverse. But as has been pointed out in numerous publications, this book was a dystopian novel. It was not meant to be saying this would be a good thing.
Can I just check? It's not L. Ron Hubbard, is it? Just out of interest?
No, it isn't. L. Ron Hubbard was not a science fiction writer, Rob. He was a prophet speaking the truth. Anyway,
Don't.
Sorry.
Rob. I missed the irony there.
There's no irony, and I want to stick on the good side of TC, Tom Cruise. Okay. Anyway, listen. He says, this guy from Satanic Delco, Joseph Rose. He says fellow Satanists with children attending schools within the Rose Tree Media School District made him aware of the verbiage in the dress code banning any clothing or gear that are satanic in nature. So this school, in their school uniform policy, has actually gone out of their way and said, no uniform, nothing in your uniform that is satanic in nature. What kind of thing do you think that would be, Rob? Horns?
Maybe. I'm guessing, black robes, possibly. Maybe a pentagram. But Alex, again, it would say to me that the reason they've had to ban it is because someone has tried to flaunt that dress code. And second of all, how many Satanist children are in this county?
I don't know, Rob, but I just want to pick you up on a small little error you made earlier. The symbol of Satanism and things like that is not a pentagram; it is an inverted pentagram. A pentagram right side up is actually has a different meaning as a symbol, but the inverted pentagram means something different, as I understand it. But anyway, any Satanists listening who want to write in and pick me up on that, you're welcome.
Yeah. Do you know what? Please do write in. I would find it entertaining. Let us know your thoughts on the podcast.
It's a pity that in our stats it doesn't tell us, how many of our listeners are Satanists. Maybe we could make that request to Libsyn. Anyway,
yeah,
the
possibly.
idea.
I'd also like to know how many people are Jedi, because I think that would be a high percentage.
I would hope so. The idea that a public school would allow religious expression in school, but choose to single out and prohibit the expression of one specific religion obviously seemed like a problem for us, Rose said. It took about a month of consistent emails and phone calls to the district before the superintendent sent out an announcement reading in part. Although we have had no complaints or concerns brought forward by any student, parent or resident, we will remove this language from our current dress code information in the student handbook.
Sorry, what?
So they've removed that.
Are you telling me they relented?
Yeah, they relented, but I do think it's odd that they had it in there in the first place. After reading the entire statement, Villanova Law's professor, Anne Giuliano, said the district probably did the right thing. I really do like the way they phrased it. They recognised there should be religious beliefs, that there could be religious beliefs that issue, not that there are, but there could be, and therefore they would take it out. But most of the people Action News spoke with in media said it makes you wonder when exercising your rights goes too far. I wouldn't want a satanic or cultish anything on clothing in schools, said Lisa Cuterefalo of Clifton Heights. It's like a free speech issue. Are they going to allow Nazis to be able to put on symbols on kids' shirts and send them to school, said Donna Wills of Media. Well, and there you're comparing Satanists to Nazis, and I mean, again, there are arguments on both sides. Rose said he will continue to fight schools on their dress code decisions. It just sort of raises awareness for what Satanists are, what we're not, and maybe helps empower us a little when we have to reach out to the next high school, which I'm doing. Rose has already launched a similar campaign involving the Garnet Valley School District, which currently prohibits clothing and gear with satanic or cultish, in quotes, imagery. According to Satanic Delco's website, I've got to look at that, the group does not worship Satan, but rather believe that religion can and should be divorced from superstition. We do not promote a belief in a personal Satan. To embrace the name Satan is to embrace rational inquiry, removed from supernaturalism and archaic tradition-based superstitions. Satanists should actively work to hone critical thinking and exercise reasonable agnosticism in all things. Our beliefs must be malleable to the best current scientific understandings of the material world, never the reverse. So basically they just believe in science. Is that it?
Alex, I'm actually on the Satanic Delco Instagram page.
So apparently, I'm on their website, which is absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I've got to read
also,
that.
You can actually buy merch.
Of course you can. Right, Rob, listen. I'm just going to go through the website. Satanic
Alex,
Delco.
Sorry, can I just have to mention this. So they had a charity appeal for a very worthy cause, genuinely. So for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. And do you want to take a guess at what their upward limit was?
Sorry, say that again. Upward limit on what?
So they had a fundraising campaign for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, so for a very worthwhile cause. Take a guess at what their upward limit was. So how much were they looking to raise?
How much do I think they were looking to raise?
It's a satanic organisation.
$20,000.
No, it was
$666.
$6,666 in this case.
Let's just go to the website, which does have a beautiful logo. The T in satanic is an upside down cross. Underneath that, it says Independent Satanic Congregation. Then it says, we are Satanists, we are neighbours, we make you coffee, we teach your kids, we come to our office when you're sick. We are an independent congregation with no affiliation to any other satanic groups. Beneath that is a picture of Baphomet, the sort of goat-headed sort of deity. Then there's a thing about what they believe. Then there is their charity appeals. One is called To Hell with Homelessness, which is meant to help homeless people.
There's one here called Heathens Helping Hounds, which is an animal rescue branch of their organisation, which I quite like. Rob,
just if you might have wondered, there is a little fact here. One of the questions is, do you promote evil? No, we hold to the basic premise that undue suffering is bad and that which reduces suffering is good. We do not believe in symbolic evil. We acknowledge blasphemy as a legitimate expression of personal independence from counterproductive traditional norms. And can I just say, a legitimate expression of personal independence from counterproductive traditional norms is a very nice episode title.
It is.
What does Satan mean to you? Satan is a symbol of the eternal rebel in opposition to arbitrary authority, forever defending personal sovereignty, even in the face of insurmountable odds. The hero. Satan is an icon for the unbowed will of the unsilenced inquirer, the heretic who questions sacred laws and rejects all tyrannical impositions. Our metaphoric representation is the literary Satan, best exemplified by Milton, and the romantic Satanist from Blake to Shelley to Anatole France. Basically, Rob, they're attention seekers.
But at the same time, Alex, I'd be more drawn to this organisation than Facebook.
Yeah, given the choice. Now, Rob, on this very special Halloween-themed spooky episode, can't wait to hear your Halloween-themed stories. Trick or treat, trick or treat.
Treat?
I haven't got any.
So, were you asking?
Yeah.
Right, okay. At this point. Well, the first story is from the Daily Record, who, by the way, on their banner have obviously been having a lot of fun by finding really bad sort of Halloween-themed clip art. So it looks like you've got like a zombie hand, there's a bat, a little cobweb. It's very entertaining. One for the kids. So obviously this is where my first story is from. It's from the 21st of October by Jessica Taylor, who is the real life features writer, and someone called Peter Diamond, who doesn't get his title isn't mentioned.
Any relation to Anne Diamond?
Quite possibly, yeah. Is it always an option? But I'd like to know what Peter Diamond does, but sadly it doesn't say. And the headline, which even now still boggles the mind, but woman who breastfeeds boyfriend before sex insists it's not weird.
Each to their own, Rob. That I will reserve judgment until I've heard this story.
Okay. All right.
Is this in the
That's
UK,
fair,
by
Alex.
the way?
It is, yes.
Okay, right.
So a couple have opened up about their breastfeeding kink, insists it's not weird, and gets them in the mood for sex. So Lana Michaels, who met her boyfriend Sean through a vegan dating app, can you imagine what that's like?
Oh God! Yeah, my favourite thing that I want to be brought back is that episode of Red Dwarf, and I can't remember which one it is. For some reason, I can't remember which one it is, but it's that one where not the one where they have the personality, back to life, where the cat is really Dwayne Dibley and all that. It's another one where, for some reason, I can't remember why, Rimmer gets metamorphosized into that kind of peace-loving vegan person, and he's wearing that. He's got the beard and he's got the t-shirt. Give Quiche a chance.
Yes. Yeah. So they met through a vegan dating site. Says the practice that is the perfect foreplay for them. The mother of two who missed nursing her children so much that she started breastfeeding her boyfriend, who used to live in Scotland. Now, how do you think that conversation went?
So hang on a minute. So this started because she missed breastfeeding her baby. And
correct.
So how did it become a sexual thing? So I imagine she said to him, "Look, Barry or whatever his name is, I miss breastfeeding. Is it their baby?"
Yeah.
Why was he in Scotland?
Oh, hang on. Let me say that. I think one's theirs and the other's from a previous relationship.
Right. So I miss breastfeeding my baby. I don't know how I'd finish that sentence. I was her. Can I do it with you?
Do you think she just like one night?
He says, "Okay, I'll try it," and then he got turned on. Is all I can assume happened, and now it's become something very entrenched and maybe quite worrying.
I was thinking that maybe it was in a, maybe I don't know, they were both embracing in bed, and she playfully just squirted some milk in his face, and it went from there.
Yep.
Easily done, Alex.
You've obviously thought about this a lot, Rob.
The duo who star in a new Channel 4 documentary, Breastfeeding My Boyfriend, need to watch that.
When's that
about
on?
Adult breastfeeding. It does tell you, I'll come on to that. About adult breastfeeding, discussing why they choose to okay, fair enough. Lana, who used to work as a teacher, please note the used to, has a 7-year-old daughter and 11-year-old son from a previous relationship. When they grow up, she missed breastfeeding them. Lana explained that she and Sean first experimented with breastfeeding 18 months ago, and she argues it creates physical energy between them before they have sex. The show, which is scheduled for Monday night at 10, so you missed the first episode, Alex, I'm sorry to say. It was October the 25th, so it would have been earlier this week. Will reveal how breastfeeding has become such a key part of their sex lives, and Lana admits she finds it difficult to stop. She's going to have to stop at some stage, surely.
No. Well, with him... There will be a point at which presumably she stops producing milk, with my rudimentary understanding of biology. Is that right?
Fair enough.
Is that right, Rob?
So just before... I think so, Alex. Yeah, I think, as far as I know, I think the women can continue lactating as someone is... I think someone is latching on. I think she can continue to do it
until
indefinitely.
She's 90?
Well, yeah, this is what wet nurses used to do.
Oh, right. Okay. At what point does the milk... okay, anyway. What point does the milk go sour, I guess, but I don't... Yeah.
Yeah, well, I suppose you could always bottle it and sell it. Just before the pandemic, you got your very own, let's not get into that. Just before the pandemic, the couple left the south of England, for a new life in Murcia in Spain, where they started experimenting with their sex life. The pair, who have an open relationship, got the idea of adult
Hang on, don't just gloss over that.
What?
So they've also got an open relationship. Okay.
Yeah. And they got into the idea of adult breastfeeding after having a foursome with another married couple.
Are there pictures of these individuals?
Yeah, you can Google it. There is pictures.
This is because I do like to judge a book by its cover. What's this story again?
So this is a woman who breastfeeds boyfriend insists it's not weird.
I've just mentioned attention seekers, didn't I, when we were talking about that Arsenal conversation? Hang on, I just want to see. Let me put it up here. Yeah, here we go.
Alex, I don't want to stereotype, but they do look like the type.
Yeah, he looks like a Satanist.
I don't know why. Do you remember we had the story about the woman who married the pirate? Or the ghost pirate, I should say. Yeah. He looks like the kind of person... he looks like the human embodiment of a ghost pirate, especially with that kilt on.
Yeah. Okay.
Lana apparently said, "I've been sucked for another woman when I started feeding milk in my mouth. That burnt up the sexual idea of breast milk connected with sex, and it went from there."
Sorry, but what if you have What if you have another kid? Right, you don't want to be getting sexual feelings when you're breastfeeding your child, do you? I don't know. I mean, I would have thought that would be quite concerning. Rob, I feel like we're heading into territory here that
Yeah, okay, well, Alex, I think you get the gist of what's going on. Ultimately, they're perverts.
So that was your first Halloween themed story. Spooky, I guess. Disturbing. Yeah. I don't. As I said, Rob, each to their own, really.
And the next one is the Wales, Wales Online. It's by Neil Shaw from the 14th of October.
I just ignored that.
Now this is this is a bizarre story. Nurse thought she was being secretly hypnotized at work and made to fart.
This is why we do this podcast. Great find, Rob. Great find. That's almost a Patreon-worthy episode story. That is, but yeah, I guess. Okay. I guess it's disturbing, Rob. It's sinister, so it fits the Halloween-themed theme.
Absolutely, Alex. Yeah, and we don't know how offensive the farts were. They could have been truly off the scale.
Pungent. Yeah. And we all know farts have long been associated with Halloween. If you ever go to one of those sort of dodgy fairgrounds, during Halloween, there will always be the house of farts, won't there, Rob? Where you go through and you get bombarded with different odious, fragrances.
Yeah, and obviously you can always buy the ghost guffs, the little squirty ghosts that emitted a weird smell.
Is that true?
They were hugely popular. No, that's not true.
That was quite quick. Yeah, quick. I think you just come up with an idea there, Rob.
Ghost guffs. It has quite limited appeal, I feel, but it's worth a go.
What I'd love is if in a week's time somebody's launched them off during this podcast and they're making millions of pounds. Anyway, the next big thing.
Right. Okay. So, are you ready for this? So a nurse has unsuccessfully tried to sue the NHS after claiming she was being hypnotised at work, causing her to fart against her will.
Sorry, how are these things connected? What's she talking about? I mean, I will give her the benefit of the doubt. This sounds appalling.
The nurse insisted she was suffering from unwelcome gastrointestinal disturbances at work following flatulence.
There's the episode title.
Oh, sorry, including flatulence.
There's the episode title. Read that again. Unwanted.
Unwelcome gastrointestinal disturbances.
Yeah. Oh yes. Brilliant.
So, a tribunal heard she was claiming she was being possessed, her private parts were being attacked, and she was gaslighted through the use of low-frequency sound waves.
So why did you say this wasn't Halloween themed, Rob? She's being possessed, Rob. It is.
Is she, Alex?
Yeah, no, but she claims it. That's the point. So it fits
Apparently
the Halloween theme.
Yeah. So she claimed the staff nurse self-diagnosed herself as being the target of ideal motor phenomena, a little-known hypnotic concept which is said to make people move. Yeah, to make movements unconsciously. So a little-known hypnotic concept which is said to make people make movements unconsciously.
Right. So she says because it was cold and a bit damp or whatever, she was having psychotic episodes.
Yeah, true. So the acute medical unit nurse described it was extremely bothersome when she sent an email at work in April 2019. Its claims led bosses to become concerned about her mental health. They referred her to an occupational health team. The nurse said, "I would like to report an observed pattern of likely inappropriate use of hypnosis, Edometer phenomena in my NHS workplace. In the last 3 months I've worked in the department, I have experiencing odd symptoms which I think are likely related to the above phenomena. I am a healthy individual and does not have any past medical history, but recently I've had various symptoms including headaches, breathing difficulties, a feeling of getting choked, and gastrointestinal disturbances, which include borgomus, spasms, and flatulence."
Right. I really feel very sorry for this individual, Rob. I mean, who did she say is targeting her with this? I don't understand.
Well, she's maintaining that apparently because of the heating conditions in this hospital, this is what's causing this.
All of this is solved, Rob, in the metaverse. She wouldn't even have to be there. She could be at home, Rob, with a headset on, doing all her duties sort of, virtually. But whilst there as an avatar, maybe she could be a werewolf. Could be her avatar, or
quite possibly
an owl. Could be anything, Rob, as Mark Zuckerberg demonstrated.
Good point.
Look, this is a landmark now, Rob, an absolute landmark, because for the first time ever on LAPodcast, we have an advert. So now, Rob, this. Local Anesthetic Podcast is now on Patreon, so sign up now to receive exclusive LAPodcast and extra jab bonus episodes to your inbox every month. These can't be found anywhere else, and if you want to hear them, go to patreon.com/LAPodcast extra. That's patreon.com/LAPodcast extra. It's more of that local anesthetic goodness you know and love. More stories about stupid people doing stupid things.
Man buried as hole he dug collapsed on Fistraw Beach in Newquay.
He's alive, right? Please tell me he's alive.
Oh.
More stupid people doing more stupid things. Tiddlywink stuck up Christchurch woman's nose for 37 years. Have you never stuck anything up your nose before, Rob?
Well, sure, marbles, I think. Marbles, but everyone stuck a marble at their nose.
Of course you had marbles. Marbles were the perfect toy for you as a child, Rob, because they're strong and they're resilient and they're cheap. Even more stupid people doing even more stupid things.
RSPCA launched investigation after mutilated sheep stuffed into Salvation Army charity bin.
Oh, God.
Officers from the RSPCA were alerted to what they first believed to be the body of a dog. They took the body back to the lab, and then 3 weeks later they found it was a sheep and not a dog.
For a time, Rob, they thought it was a sheepdog, but the confusion was cleared up, and it is in fact a sheep, not a dog, not a sheepdog.
Exactly.
And of course, the strangest news stories you've ever heard, like Special Ops forces in the United States being attacked by a ninja. It's unclear, Rob, from the records whether the man was an actual practitioner of ninjutsu.
Maybe it was Liam Neeson.
Okay, look, right. I am going to, Rob, read out a story before we move to our listener story of the week. But before I do that, the listeners and yourself, Rob, will be very, very happy to know that I have located my purple rod, which means I can play the recorder again. But I did see a story that caught my eye, not about a recorder, to be fair. It is an instrument in the same family as the recorder, I guess, which is the flute. Which my specialism is the recorder, but the flute is a fine instrument. It's by Ryan Rocker. It's from globalnewscanada.ca. And the headline, driver caught playing flute with both hands in Halton region, police say.
Okay, right, fine.
A post on the Halton Police Burlington Twitter account said the driver was spotted while an officer was conducting distracted driving enforcement on Wednesday. The post said the officer was expecting to discover that the driver was using a cell phone, but instead found they were using a flute. Police said the driver was following along to a song on an iPod while playing. So here's their tweet, Rob. I said the story is only short. Just says traffic officer was conducting distracted driver enforcement today and was expecting a cell phone from this driver. A little surprised to find the driver was playing his flute with both hands and following along to an iPod while driving down the freeway, Rob.
So how was he doing that? Canada is like the US. It has obviously very wide lanes and long, very straight roads. So you could potentially just stick the cruise control on and play your flute, as we all do.
You never played with your flute whilst driving, Rob? I like to do it.
Yeah, but that's a different story, Alex.
Yeah. Anyway. Okay, so
I prefer not to go into it.
When Lyra listens back to the catalogue of these, because obviously when she reaches that kind of age where she can sort of understand full sentences and abstract language and humour and all of those things, you will begin playing to her every episode of LA Podcast and LA Podcast Extra and maybe Daft Talk as well at bedtime, episode a night, Rob, and she can listen to them all. And when she reaches these episodes, she will begin to hear that her future godfather still isn't confirmed yet. There's still time for either me to pull out or Rob to change his mind.
Yep, very true.
She will hear that I constructed these personalised ditties for her and our listeners. Anyway, this is our listener story of the week. So let me just play this, Rob. Sorry, I have to say I cocked that up, but it wasn't meant to quite go like that.
I mean, to be honest, Alex, it's very difficult to know when you have cocked up one of your compositions because they all sound the same.
That is, Rob, at the heart of all kind of experimental jazz. Yeah,
right. Okay,
which is what I specialise in. For anybody wondering.
It's good to know. I mean, it started very well, actually. I quite enjoyed the start of it, but then it went downhill quite rapidly.
I've often been told I am the Picasso of the recorder world, Rob.
Right. Do a lot of people say this?
Yes.
Right. Good to know. Okay, on to the listener story. So this week it is from Khyber. It is from the Yorkshire Live. And I've realised that it isn't just the Daily Record. It's obviously all local news sites, and obviously the Daily Record is part of that have used these dodgy clip arts because they're all across their banners, which is nice. It's
these things that the local newspapers have started doing, like on particular days where they sort of band together and do this. It's so feeble. It's so feeble and crap.
Alex, that doesn't really seem in keeping with the Halloween tradition. I mean, they're just trying to bring some lightness, to bring some joy to people's lives, and this attitude is poisonous. I'll be honest.
Fair enough.
Right. Okay, so it is from the Yorkshire Live. As I said, it's by Laura Withers from the 29th.
Who did you say submitted this, Rob?
Khyber.
Right. Yep. Thanks, Khyber.
Headline: Yorkshire man furious as zigzag painted lines outside his former school house.
Right. If it's former, why does he give a shit?
Well, because it's not a school.
Right. Okay.
And like the keep clear signs that they paint outside schools.
Yes.
They've done that outside his house.
Oh, I see. I thought you said his former house.
Sorry, his former schoolhouse, what I meant to say.
Right, okay, go on.
So, So a Yorkshire homeowner has been left furious after a keep clear sign and zigzag lines were painted on the road outside his house, which was once a primary school.
Oh, I see. So they saw it and thought, that must still be a primary school. They've got it on some old map and they just stuck it there. That is brilliant. Although, isn't that a boon for him when it comes to parking? Nobody's going to park outside his house. What the fuck is he complaining about?
Yeah, but it also means that he can't park outside his house.
Of course he can, because he just puts a note on the dashboard that says, this is not a school.
This is my house. Which out of context, I think if you're walking past and just saw a car parked outside the school with a sign saying, this is my house, I think that would be quite creepy.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Or spooky even, Rob.
Ooh. Yeah. So Greg Smith, 56, who lives in the building in Gwellenthorpe near Ripon, North Yorkshire for 8 years, says the primary school shut down 18 years ago and was later converted into a residential house by a local builder. But earlier this month, he was baffled to find a contractor to the North Yorkshire County Council painted the school keep clear sign outside his house.
This is the quintessential local anaesthetic story, isn't it? Absolutely brilliant. Great find, Kaiba. Great find.
So despite explaining to the contractor the property was no longer a school and hadn't been for almost 2 decades, the sign was still painted on the road.
Yeah, can I guess, mate? The contractor's like, it's not my job, mate. It's not my job. Look, I've been asked to do this, mate. Sorry. I've been asked to do this. You have to take it up with them. And he's just being sent round. Like, this is one of these things where everybody he calls, he's just fobbed off to somebody else.
Absolutely. Yeah, it would be passed from pillar to post. In the meantime, the contractor was just happily just doing his job in the background.
Exactly.
So Mr. Smith said he and his wife have now been forced to park their car further away from their home for fear of getting fined. Speaking to Yorkshire Live, Mr. Smith said, the sign is right outside our house. It's where my wife usually parks and where our neighbours park their cars. It's a pretty well-used parking area, and it was quite a coincidence that no cars were there when the contractor came. Otherwise, it would have been pretty hard to paint the sign. My understanding is if you park your car on a school keep clear sign, you could get a fine. A traffic warden could hand it out. I think he'd have a good chance of a successful appeal, but you wouldn't want to be doing it every day, would you? You keep having to appeal these fines. What are the council going to do about this, Rob? So, Alex, let's go back to what you were saying. Absolutely, but also what you were saying. It looks like he was literally in conversation with the contractor. But a week last Friday, Mr. Smith saw a contractor come to paint the lines. I went over to speak to him and said, you do realise this is a private house? Mr. Smith said, despite his protest, the contractor continued to paint the lines. Mr. Smith said he rang the council immediately afterwards and numerous times since, but claims he has still not heard back from them. As it stands, I've not heard anything from the highways, he said. Not a dicky bird. I just want the council to remove it. It's possible to paint over it or burn it off. I just want to see some action from the council.
Could he just paint over it?
Yeah, I think so.
I would wait a few weeks and then just do it. I mean, this is absurd. This is everything that's wrong with this country. Is he in a Tory council?
North Yorkshire. Difficult to say these days.
Can we look it up? I don't know what it tells us.
North Yorkshire County Council.
Yeah, you can do that. North Yorkshire County Council. Let's predict. I imagine it's probably Labour, isn't it?
It is, for the controlling Conservative Party.
Oh, so it is, boo. Boo.
That's not a ghosty. Oh, but yours is, yeah. But I was just generally booing.
Okay. Right, Rob. That brings us to the end of episode 347 of LAPodcast, our Halloween-themed special. We can be found... no, do I do that yet? I can't remember. No, we look forward with a mixture of eager anticipation yet trepidation to our next episode, which will be episode 348, as we move ever more forward, Rob,
a man who's driving down the highway with only his knees whilst playing the flute God, what's the famous flute piece?
Oh, it wasn't the Pied Piper, and he led all the rats into the sea, didn't he? But they didn't pay him, so then he took their kids. Bastard.
Yes. Why did you mention that?
Well, maybe that's what he was doing. Maybe he was on his way to his next Pied Piper gig. Just like that, we move ever more forward to our next episode of... Because didn't the Pied Piper play the flute or something similar?
Well, yeah, or the pipe, yeah. Because it's not the pipe flutist. Flautist.
This is going nowhere. Just like that, we've everyone forward to our next episode, which will be 348. We're on our website, LAPodcast.net. We're on facebook.com/, facebook.com, now known as Meta, facebook.com/LAPodcast. We're on Twitter at LAPodcast. We are on Spotify. And of course, if you want to become a member of LA Podcast, you can go to patreon.com/LA Podcast Extra. And of course, from there, you will get bonus episodes if you sign up every month. And yeah, just help to support the growth of this podcast. But Rob, we've had something sitting in our inbox for ages, and it's very lucky you reminded me about it today, because I'm not going to sing us out, but I am going to read us out, if you like, from something Kyber sent us quite a long time ago that was just called Ghost Story, which he wrote himself. Now, I have to say, Rob, this is really one for the local anaesthetic connoisseurs out there, because there's a lot of people when I read this who won't necessarily understand the joke. It goes back to something that we were doing quite regularly for quite some time, over a period of time, until Rob took out an injunction against me, literally a court injunction to stop me doing it, and I had to stop. But I hope, Rob, this doesn't break that. It's with your permission I read it.
Yeah.
So Kyber wrote this 24th of August, so quite some time ago. He just says, inspired by Dickensian waifs, ill-conceived children's entertainers, and pseudo-mythological creatures, which I think is his bid for an episode title, Rob. And we should maybe use it today.
That is so strong.
Dickensian waifs, ill-conceived children's entertainers, and pseudo-mythological creatures. I have come up with the outline for a horror story. Picture the scene just a couple of years from now. Little Lyra, which is the name of Rob's daughter, not Little Lyra, they called her Lyra, not Little Lyra, that would be weird, has an imaginary friend. Not so unusual for a toddler, perhaps. Her parents didn't think so at first, but then there was the voice they could sometimes hear from her room in the dead of the night, a scratchy, high-pitched thing like nails on a chalkboard. Next came the newspaper cuttings, found strewn all over the house each morning. When Rob awoke before dawn one day to the sound of scissors on paper, he ran to her room at once. Lyra lay chuckling in her cot, the cot surrounded by stacks of local tabloids which fluttered in the breeze from the slightly ajar window. When she saw her father, she became quiet for a moment as she stared into his eyes. With a large grin on her face, she said the words, "Mr. Sodiplay," before looking away and softly giggling herself back to sleep. Rob noticed with a great deal of concern that the security light which covered the garden outside the child's room had been triggered by something. Later that day, in a desperate bid to get to the bottom of the matter, Rob and Sarah fitted the room with a nanny cam. The following day, after a troubled night's sleep for the couple and a fresh spate of newspaper clippings, they reviewed the footage. The black and white video showed nothing amiss. Indeed, all remained calm until 4 a.m, when the window was shown to jerk wide open, followed by a flurry of sheets of newspaper entering the room on an unnatural gust of wind. Through the maelstrom, Rob and Sarah could just make out a small figure crawling in, over the windowsill. As it neared the camera, they could make out that it was some sort of soft toy, but wrong somehow. Its red and blue sweater was discoloured with dirt, and maggots and worms fell from its cartoonish face as it stumbled forward, making snipping motions with the oversized shears which it leaned towards the camera with. The video went dark at this point, but the audio remained. Over the sounds of a howling gale and whirlwind of printed pages, Lara could be heard laughing incessantly as she repeated two ? Words over and over. Episode? Episode? Hi, Rob. Hi, Rob, it's the episode.
Alex, I just have to remind you that you can't do that as part of the injunction.
What did I use?
The voice is very...
What did I use as the puppet?
Do you really want to...
I don't remember.
Do you not remember?
No. Was it a Bert and Ernie thing that I used?
It was, yes,
Right.
Alex, yes.
Okay.
It was, yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, we're not allowed to go back there. That's all dead and buried, Rob. Just like every good skeleton on Halloween. And on that note, Rob, we bring this episode shaking his head
Fucking hell.
to an end. Thank you very much for listening, everybody. If you want more content, come and join us over on Patreon, patreon.com/LA Podcast Extra. We'd love you to join us there. And we'll see you in 2 weeks' time. God bless.
And keep it spookal. Local. Keep it local.